Morning, grade 7. I hope you had a good long weekend. So this week we're finishing off our unit on area, perimeter, all things to do with angles. There's actually a lot going on in this unit. That's why we've been taking our time with it. And then next week, probably next week Tuesday, so a week from today, you will have another online test. So today we're talking about area and perimeter. You're already introduced to this on Friday when you watched an online video. I just want to review and highlight a few things to get you ready for your lesson for today. So one thing that I notice whenever I teach area and perimeter is that people often mix up the two. They mix up what is area and what is perimeter. So I always think of area as being carpet or sod. So carpet you need to lay in your house, you need to cover a whole surface, or sod that you need to lay to make your lawn. And then I think of perimeter as the baseboard that goes around the edge of your room, or as a fence that goes around your yard. So that was helpful for me to distinguish between area and perimeter. So if you can keep that in mind, I like to think of the grass is the area and the fence is the perimeter. Growing up in Winnipeg, maybe you heard the other Miss Nyhoff say this, but we had the perimeter highway. It was like literally a giant loop that went around the city. So kids in Winnipeg never had a hard time figuring out area and perimeter because they knew about the perimeter highway. All right, so let's talk about squares, rectangles, and parallelograms. I'm only going to do one example here because you have been working with area since probably grade 5. And I thought I would point out that for squares, rectangles, and parallelograms, we always use the same formula. Area equals base times height. Now, if you want for a square, you could also say area equals base squared, which is really base times base, because remember with a square, your base is the same as your height. But if you want to keep it simple, you can just think for all three of these squares, rectangles, and parallelograms, the area is the base times height. Now, the most important thing when figuring out the base times height for a parallelogram is to make sure you know what the actual height is. Remember that the height has to be going up from your base at a 90-degree angle. So, in this case, 5 meters is my height. It's not 6 meters, okay? So you're going to see different diagrams where it gives you lots of information, but you need to determine which numbers you need to use. So I plug in what I know. I have my formula written out. Area equals base times height. The base is 12 and the height is 5. Area equals 12 times 5. 12 times 5 is 60. And then, don't forget units, meters, but they are square meters, right? Because it's not just a meter stick, it covers 1 square meter of space. So please do your best to get in the habit of putting your units with that squared sign. All right, then let's take a look at triangles. Triangles are a little bit more difficult. We have here the formula that was given in your textbook, area equals 1/2 times base times height. I personally prefer using this one, area equals base times height divided by 2. Now, of course, either formula will give you the same answer, but it's up to you as to what you like working with. Now, with triangles, just like with parallelograms, the important thing is always to determine what is actually the height and what is the base. So I just wanted to let you see 3 different types of triangles. So in this one up here, my height is pretty obvious, right? I have that square angle, I have my base, and the height actually is one of the sides in my triangle. It goes up from a 90-degree angle and it's 7 inches. In the second triangle, I can see my base, and then what they've done is they've drawn the height going out over here, which is 10 meters. It's really like doing the same thing as other ones where we like to put the height like right going up here. It just put it out to the side to show you that 90-degree angle is the height. So it's basically from the top of my triangle to where the base would be if we extended it out. Then in this one, this is a pretty typical one. Again, our base is right here, and then our height is right in the middle. So the height is not 5, that's the angle that's it's going out at. It's going 5 from down here in the corner all the way up, but the actual height going straight up from my base is 4. Now notice this one's not a great example because it doesn't have any units, but most that you're going to be working with in your textbook should have units. So let's say I'm going to solve this second triangle here. Area equals base times height over 2. So remember, it's important when you use formulas to plug in what you know. So I do not know my area, but I do know my base. So where there was the letter B, I'm going to put the number 14. Where there was the letter H, I'm going to put the number 10. But then don't forget the second half of your formula, divided by 2. So I get area equals 140 divided by 2. I'm going to break my rule. I'm going to do 2 equal signs on one line just for room. 140 divided by 2 is 70. 70 what? 70 meters squared. Okay, so remember, the reason this formula works, dividing by 2, is like pretending, if we go back to this middle triangle, looking at it, that this triangle is really half of a rectangle. I didn't do a great job of showing that. But that's essentially why we use the original base times height, right, that we use for squares. And then we just cut it in half because a triangle is half the size of a square or a rectangle. Now, one problem that you're going to come across in your textbook is going to give you the area. So this one's, what if you already know the area? So in this case, we're told what the area is. I'm told what the base is, but I don't know the height. Well, to go about solving it algebraically, I still use the same formula. I know the area of a rectangle is base times height. I'm still going to plug in the numbers that I know. So I know the area is 45. So I'm going to put it there. And then I know the base is 9, and I don't know the height. Area, so I have 45 equals 9 times h, which is 9h. So now we can go back to our skills from earlier in the year. How do I get h divided by itself? I do the opposite, so I divide by 9. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. My h stays over here. 45 divided by 9 is 5. Okay, so my height is 5 meters. I should add my units down here. Notice it's not 5 meters squared, it's just 5 meters because we're just talking about a height, a straight stick. So when you get to that problem in your textbook, you might want to go back to this part of the video. Just write out the formula and then plug in what you know. All right, now for perimeter. Perimeter is very simple. You can use a formula or you cannot. But the main thing to remember with perimeter is all we are doing is we are adding up all the sides. Now this problem happens to give you all the different sides, but remember, some of them might not give you all the information. But if you're working with a parallelogram, I know that this top line is congruent or equal to this bottom line. So even if I wasn't told that this was 27 yards, I would know that based on what I know about properties of parallelograms. So if I want, all I really need to do is add these up. This, I can make a 10 and make another 10, and I get 20, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, and I get 80 yards. Now this one's not squared because I'm just measuring a flat distance. If you want, you can solve it algebraically. You can say the perimeter is 2 of the bases plus 2 of the heights. Right, so you can go equals 2 times, my base was 27, plus 2 times the height, 13. Perimeter equals 2 times 27 is 54, plus 26, and then my perimeter is still 80 yards. So I'm gonna leave that one up to you how you want to do it, okay? The simplest way is to remember you add up all the sides. One thing I do want to point out is make sure just because you see a number, it doesn't mean you need it. Right here we have 12 yards. That's not part of the perimeter. That would be helpful information if I were to solve the area, because that's my height. So whenever you're working with these problems, grade 7, make sure you think, what information do I really need? All right, and then just quickly at the end, the perimeter of a triangle, if you wanted to do it as a formula, the perimeter equals side A plus B plus C, which is basically just saying, grade 7, the triangle sides, we can just add them all up together. Okay, so I get 24 plus, it's not a good plus sign, plus 8, and I get 32 centimeters. So the biggest thing for this lesson is to pay attention to what information you need and think carefully on if you're solving for perimeter or for area. All right, I hope you have a good rest of your day. See you later.